Guys, this is Jack Later. I want to welcome my replay viewers right now. And guys, make sure to go to, before you forget, make sure to go to workwithjacklater.com, workwithjacklater.com, and download that 8-step checklist and video walkthrough to 30 to 50 leads per day. Anyway, I want to welcome everybody out to my Periscope right now. And I'm going to talk about how to own your own business, how to own your own business and really own it and do well. And the reason why I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to show you something here real quick right before we talk here. This is a picture right here of my father's grandfather. Well, why does that really matter? He's an immigrant, and as many people, or most people in America, most of us come from immigrants, and I have immigrants on all four sides of my family, and what's that got to do with entrepreneurship and owning your own business? I'm gonna talk about something that's going to be really, really helpful and really important. Let me get my lighting right here, just a second. For some reason my lighting is a little funny. Anyway, how to own your own business. And you don't necessarily have to put out a lot of money to do it, especially when you first start out. The cool thing about the internet is you could own your own business without putting out a lot of money. In fact, you could start for free. Now, eventually you're going to have to put out some money, but owning your own business doesn't have to cost anything at all. And so why am I talking about how to own your own business? Okay, so there's a lot of things that are going through my mind right now, but part of it is in America we have laws set up where if you want to be free and own your own business, you could do it. Now, why am I talking about my immigrant great-grandfather? Because they didn't have that kind of a freedom. And we know the reason why they came here was to have the freedom they need to conduct business, to worship the way they want to. And there's a tendency in America to say that because we live in a land of freedom, we're free to do whatever we want. And to a certain extent that's true, but we all know that with freedom comes a lot of responsibility, maybe more responsibility than what a lot of us are willing to take on. Very important that we take on that responsibility and take ownership of our business. Now, when I say how to own your own business, I'm talking about really, really owning it. Now, I was listening to a tape today by Les Brown where he talked about taking responsibility for our own successes and our own failures. And he talked about how important it is to accept the responsibility and stop making excuses for ourselves. T. Harv Eker said something to the effect, he says that there's three chokeholds that people take upon themselves in their own business, and that is blame, complain, and justify. He says anytime you do one of those three things, blaming, complaining, or justifying, then you've lost the battle. I read a book by Booker T. Washington several years ago, and in fact I read it, I believe, 3 times. It is called Up From Slavery. Up From Slavery. And as you know, or as you may know, Booker T. Washington was born in slavery, but yet he rose right after the Emancipation Proclamation. He grew up, and he had an insatiable desire to educate himself. And because of that, he eventually became the president of Tuskegee University. And so again, a man who was born in slavery, up from slavery, and became one of the most respected people in our generation, Booker T. Washington. And one of the things that he mentioned in his book was that one of the tragedies, two of the tragedies of slavery was, number one, when people got out of slavery, they had a difficult time trying to make it on their own. And many of them actually ended up working for their former slave owners as hired hands, if you want to call them being hired. I'm sure they gave them as little as they could, but they ended up a lot of them ended up going back on the plantation and continued that probably even till today to a certain extent. But Booker T. Washington said that it did the slaves a major disservice, because when they got out, they were so reliant upon their slave masters telling them what to do that they didn't know how to become freedom fighters themselves. Or in other words, well, we had the freedom fighters, but many of them weren't able to take their own initiative. Now, he said, on the other hand, the other tragedy of the war was the slave owners' children, their own children, because the families were so entrenched in having slaves that in his opinion, in Booker T. Washington's opinion, many of the children, many of the sons and daughters of slave owners didn't take responsibility for themselves because they always had slaves and servants around them. And so Booker T. Washington was wise enough to say that slavery was a tragedy for not only the blacks, mostly the blacks, but also for the whites, that it was a tragedy for them too, because their children didn't learn how to work and didn't learn how to take responsibility for their own success. Well, so the two parallels here: my grandfather, who's an immigrant, to get away from a dictatorship and come to America for freedom, and the abolishment of slavery, but the amount of time that it took for us to get over the shackles of slavery. And when I say us, I mean all of us, both blacks and whites, because it was bad all around. So anyway, what does that have to do with entrepreneurship? Well, it has to do everything with entrepreneurship, because now we're in America. Whatever nationality you come from, and I have probably 4 different nationalities that I know of, maybe 5 in my family. Here we are in America. What are we going to do with it with our business? Okay, what are we going to do with it with our business? One of the things that Les Brown talked about so forcefully in his speeches, Les Brown said that we have free will. We have free will, and as a man thinketh, so is he. We have the ability now with our minds, with our country, with our laws, to exercise free will and take full responsibility for our success. And so, will you do it? If you're failing, can you blame your boss? No. Now, as if you're working for a boss and you're trying to make ends meet, you need to make ends meet, but I don't know if you would call that complete freedom. You're still a slave to your boss. You're still a slave to your boss. So my question is will you make a choice? Will you make a choice, a definitive choice, to accept responsibility for your own success and for your own failures? For your own success and your own failures. Your successes are yours to earn. Your failures are also yours to earn. Now, the cool thing about failures is that it's not an end all, right? I mean, I don't care who you talk about, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, you name the successful person, and I'm going to tell you a person that's had a lot of failures, because you learn from those failures. They're just temporary defeats, or temporary, not, I wouldn't say defeats completely, but temporary roadblocks that is an important part of your education. So, will you accept total responsibility and take action in whatever business that you have? So, I want to encourage you to take action, to accept responsibility, to stop blaming, complaining, and justifying, and take 100% responsibility for your successes. So, anyway, I know that I've been rambling a bit here, but freedom comes at a price. And our businesses can be owned, at least at the beginning, for free. Now, even if your business is fairly low cost, not everything is free. In other words, even if you're marketing online for free, there's a price that you have to pay. Now, I want to mention one other thing that's gone through my mind. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and went to college in the 70s and the 80s. And one thing that I noticed, and a lot of other people noticed, is that in the 60s, when during all of the civil unrest in the 60s and some in the 70s, many people were saying, okay, I've got my freedom, okay, and they kept talking about freedom. I'm free to do whatever I want, without the overtone of no responsibility. And years later, many of the proponents of the freedom movement in the 60s and 70s realized later on that freedom comes at a price. And they kind of forgot, and sometimes we forget today, that freedom does come at a price. And the Revolutionary War came at a price. We wanted our freedom from British rule, and we got it, but it came at a big price of a lot of lives. And freedom for the blacks came at a tremendous price of the Civil War, unfortunately. And today, our military people continue to protect our freedoms. Now, freedom comes at a big price. The question is for your own business, will you use your own freedom of choice, your own free will, as it were, to and take responsibility for your own choices? And do you really want to be free? Do you really want to be free? If you're okay with living with working for a boss the rest of your life, then I think that's okay. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and be your own boss, are you willing to take the challenges of having that kind of a freedom? Now, here's the last challenge that I'm going to pose to you, especially if you're a leader of any organization. I don't care what it is. Maybe it's you're a manager of a car dealership. Maybe you're an owner of a real estate company. Maybe you're a team leader in a network marketing company. One thing you have to realize as a leader is that most of your people are used to being told what to do. They're used to getting some kind of direction in their lives. We grow up in kindergarten and elementary school being told what to do, and then we get a job, we graduate, and even when we're in college, we're told what to do. When we get a job, we're told by our boss what to do, and then all of a sudden we're thrown in as a leader first of all, we decide to become a freedompreneur, an entrepreneur, and we decide that we're going to direct ourselves and we're going to push ourselves. But yet we're not used to doing that. Now, I'm not talking about just straight out initiative. I'm talking about taking responsibility, making plans on a daily basis, putting goals together on a daily and a weekly and a monthly basis, and meeting and reaching those goals. And doing that is all self-directed stuff. But yet we're not used to doing that when we are in our jobs. Your boss may say, well, put together plans or come up with an action plan to do this or that. But yet for our own business, we're not used to doing that. And all of a sudden, we have to do that as an entrepreneur. So if you're a leader, I would ask you to keep that in mind and remember that your team members are used to being told what to do, and you kind of have to tell them what to do. You have to give them direction. And once they get a foothold in their own business, the best thing that you could do for them is to help them take responsibility for their own actions, their own success or failure in their own business, and don't handhold them through the whole process. Give them direction, tell them what to do, but yet let them, you got to pull back quickly and let them do what they need to do. Get them plugged into a system. If you're in a network marketing company, you've got to get them plugged in. So anyway, I hope you got some value from that. I know this has been a bit of a rant today, but I hope you got a little bit of value from that. Mostly the idea of taking responsibility and ownership for your own business. Make it a great day. Bye.